By midnight, my spouse was slumped and smiling at ghosts, and a stranger with storm-gray eyes pressed a cool glass into my hand. He kept watch beside me, saying almost nothing, doing everything. I didn't know then that staying awake with him would change the morning I woke to forever. The hotel ballroom smelled like roses and worry. I had chosen the roses, ordered them by the crate to make the gala look like something out of a magazine. The worry arrived uninvited on Aaron's breath, bitter and sweet, numbing the corner of my own mouth when he kissed my cheek. He was dazzling when he drank, until he wasn't. My spouse could set a room spinning with stories, lift a table in two, laughter, conquer strangers with that coppery smile. Then, as midnight insisted on itself, the edges would fray, words would double, steps would blur. The room would tilt around him. Tonight the violinist played something silvery, while Aaron tried to toast the donors with an empty flute. I took it from his hand, replaced it with water, smiled so hard my jaw cramped. That was when he appeared, the stranger from the bar, the one with the storm-gray eyes. "Trade you," he said, holding out a glass with slices of lime suspended like kites. "You look like you need this more than he does." His suit was expensive, the tie loosened enough to suggest he could breathe. He had the kind of presence that made space simpler. I didn't take the drink at first. "I'm Nolan," I said, filling the space with something polite. He smiled like that mattered. "Quentin." The name felt like a door opening into a hallway I hadn't explored. Aaron was laughing at something no one had said. I sighed and took the glass. The night diluted around us. Quentin didn't push or pry. He stood nearby, a quiet orbit steering Aaron toward chairs, intercepting a fresh pour with a waiter's grateful nod. At one point, he draped a linen napkin over Aaron's shoulders like a cape, and even Aaron grinned at the softness. When the speeches ended and the band turned to standards, I coaxed Aaron toward the elevators. He leaned on me heavily, all warmth and apology. "You're the best," he slurred, which was his way of saying, "I'm slipping. Please don't let me fall." Quentin walked with us without asking permission. In the hallway outside our room, Aaron half collapsed against the wall art and began to tell it about his first bicycle. I unlocked the door and guided him inside, guided him to the bed, gathered the scattered pieces as they fell. Quentin hovered in the doorway like a respectful ghost. "Water and ibuprofen?" he asked. "And a trash can," I added. We moved, like we'd rehearsed it, strangers conducting a small rescue. By the time Aaron was horizontal and muttering to the ceiling, the room had gone quiet, except for the low hum of the city 8 floors below us. I stepped into the doorway with Quentin and pulled it almost shut. It felt like closing a curtain around a private storm. I hadn't realized my hands were shaking until he offered the glass again and his fingers steadied mine. The limes knocked softly, like a tiny bell with no clapper. "Thank you," I said, and meant it the way you mean it to someone who's seen you in a bad light and doesn't flinch. We stood a beat too long. Somewhere down the hall, an ice machine complained. Quentin's shoulder nearly brushed mine. The space between us felt carefully chosen. "Do you need me to stay?" he asked. "Not you. Me." The question made a small noise in my chest. "I'm fine," I lied, then shook my head. "Would you maybe just walk with me for a while?" I didn't trust the silence in that room. I didn't trust myself inside it. We found the hotel's midnight geography, empty conference halls humming with air, carpets patterned like constellations, a vending machine that refused every bill but one. We sat on a bench in the glass sky bridge and watched the city braid itself into lights. He asked about the gala. I answered honestly. "I wanted it to feel generous," I said, "like a promise I could keep." He nodded. "And does it?" I thought of the balance sheets, the months of calls, the quiet war at home. Tonight it feels like I built a beautiful room and forgot to put a door in it. Quentin's laugh was low and immediate. "Then maybe it needs a window," he said, as if windows could be conjured out of sentences. He told me he restored. Old houses that he loved finding where light wanted to go. I told him I'd forgotten that about myself. He did not look away. We talked about small things that weren't small. My aversion to cilantro, his grandmother's garden, the way the IE city smelled before rain. At some point, my shoulder found the back of the bench, and his jacket brushed my sleeve, and the bench learned our weight. Nothing happened. Everything happened. We breathed. At 3, the sky bridge lights dimmed, as if the hotel blinked. I checked my phone. No missed calls, no messages from the room across the atrium. "He'll be okay," Quentin said softly, not as a promise, but a hand held out. "You've been carrying a heavy thing for a long time." I didn't know how to answer, without telling the truth. "Sometimes I don't know where he ends and I start," I said. "Like I've loaned my outline to someone else." Quentin's eyes warmed. "Then tonight, draw a new line. Just a pencil mark. You can even erase it later if you must, the D." Elevator chimed at the hall's end, a solitary note, and we didn't move. Dawn smeared the skyline. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I realized, sharp and clean, I didn't want it to end, didn't want to go back to the door. By the time dawn brushed the horizon, the phone had rung twice, Aaron had groaned once, and Quentin's shoulder had become the only place I wasn't bracing. There was a choice in that hallway, the kind you can't pretend you tripped into. And it followed us into the light, whether I wanted. "Unknown number," I said, as if naming it would drain the weight. The screen glowed against the skybridge glass, a lonely star pretending to be helpful. I let it slide to voicemail and didn't. Press play. Quentin watched me watch the city until the city blinked first. "Do you want to check on him?" he asked. No pressure. An open hand in a quiet room. "Yes," I said, because love is often a list. We walked the sleeping hallways back to our floor, the lemon-polished smell of carpets pretending at morning. Inside, Aaron lay across the bed like he'd washed ashore, breathing heavy, a glass of untouched water patiently waiting to be useful. "Noel?" he rasped, blinking up through the fog. "You okay?" "I'm okay," I told him, smoothing hair from his forehead. The decent part of him looked through me, the sober current, a river below the rapids. He saw the shape in the doorway, the line of a man who wasn't leaving, and frowned. "Who's that?" "Quentin," I said. "He helped me get you settled." Aaron's mouth tilted. "You always need someone," he muttered, the kind of comment that sticks because it's glued with something old. Quentin didn't flinch. I tucked the sheet around Aaron's shoulder like closing a book before the last page. "I'll be back before breakfast," I promised. His eyes rolled shut. My phone buzzed again. New unknown. I answered. "Mr. Hayes?" a woman said, voice tight with tiredness. "Lila from the donation platform. We're flagging duplicate charges. Fraud filters are tripping. We should act before the East Coast wakes up." The floor shifted under the carpet. "What can we do?" "Freeze. New transactions, email donors preemptively, push reversals before disputes," she said. "I can help draft language or stay on the line." I glanced at Quentin. The patience in him felt like a place to sit down. "Send me the list," I said. "I'm not alone here." We retrieved my laptop from the suitcase like a lifeboat and went hunting coffee. The business center's blue-lit quiet felt like a chapel for people who refused to give up. A vending machine surrendered bitter cups. We made a round table into a command post. Quentin rolled his sleeves and made order sound simple. "Names, amounts, contact info," he said. "A clear note. We see it, we're fixing it. Your generosity matters, your card is safe." He spoke like a man who measures twice because he's held the weight of mistakes. Lila's spreadsheets arrived in staggered bursts. We drafted messages in the in-between. Quentin weighed words in his palm before offering them. "At 3 a.m., people don't need flourishes," he said. "They need to hear someone's awake." He told me, almost casually, about a night a pipe burst in a house he was restoring, water threading through joists like secrets. "You learn to listen for pressure," he said. To move before the wood warps. In our room, Aaron coughed himself upright long enough to squint at the doorway. Are we broke? His voice tried for joking and tripped on the way there. No, I said, crossing to him. We're fixing a hiccup. Sleep. His gaze drifted to the glow beyond me, where another shape bent over a screen. Of course you've got help, he whispered, half venom, half wound. You never needed me. The words weren't true, but they knew where to sting. I set the trash can near his hand and didn't counterpunch. In the hall, I exhaled like I owed air money. Quentin slid a water toward me, a lime slice sailing ghost-like at the bottom. Keep going, he said. Not a command, an offer to stand in the weather with me, emails lifted into the thinning dark like small lanterns. Replies began, thanks for the heads up, do what you need, I trust you. Between batches, Quentin asked quiet questions that made room. How long have you been carrying him? Since before he asked, I said, and the truth of it landed between us like something with weight. He nodded, not surprised. I loved someone who loved whiskey, he said. Brilliant, bright, brave, until the glass went up between us. I built him 3 kitchens with soft, close drawers, and thought if the house was gentle, the hurt would learn how. It didn't. Lila pinged me again. We need to freeze new transactions for 4 hours, she said. The word freeze reached into my ribs. I looked toward Aaron, turned toward Morning, and then at the spreadsheet names waiting for a steady voice. Freeze them, I said. I'll own it. Quentin let out a breath like untying a knot. There, he said. A line. We scheduled morning calls, 7, 8, 9. We polished a website banner. We numbered tasks like they might agree to be counted. The night did its softening trick. The carpet flowers learned their colors again. The city began rehearsing sun. T. The edges of focus, I shivered. Without comment, Quentin draped his jacket over my shoulders. It held a polite heat. For a second, reckless sentences rose. Stay. Save me. They weren't requests so much as names of doors I hadn't opened. He didn't reach for me. I didn't reach for him. We kept our oaths to the people asleep and the people awake. When I stumbled over a note to a widow donor, Quentin said, keep his name in there. Grief likes to be recognized. I typed Henry and watched the cursor agree. 6 o'clock brought the first apology from someone who'd done nothing wrong. 6:20 brought Aaron shambling past, eyes slivered, pausing long enough to see us bent together over the work like conspirators of kindness. He said nothing. Water ran, a door clicked. The room reclaimed its secrets. We kept typing. My phone vibrated with a text from a number my gut recognized without a name. Breakfast at 8. We need to talk about Aaron. Marla D. The largest donor we had. Her M looked like a crown in my head. Her D felt like a door I didn't know how to open without breaking something. Quentin read my face like blueprints. Window? He asked. Window, I said. We stood, joints stiff with the cost of staying. We gathered the night into a neat folder, a plan dense as a beam. We walked to the glass at the end of the hall, that long pane that had been our witness all night. The city was tender with light. I pressed my palm against the cool and felt it answer. You drew a line, Quentin said, joining me at the glass. Want help drawing the next? I smiled without looking at him. Maybe just a pencil mark. Something I can erase if I panic. Most lines can be changed, he said. Doors too. Windows you just clean. Behind us, a notification chimed. The website banner live, donors already replying to thank us for being frank. Ahead of us, the day opened like a careful promise. Beside me, a man who had spent the night with me without crossing a single line stood like a window I had forgotten how to open. Aaron would wake, and Marla would sit across from me with coffee and a question I'd been ducking for months. But for one breath, with the city brightening and the lime wheel faint in the bottom of my glass, I let myself have this. Quentin and I, awake, unafraid, looking in the same direction. At 8, a donor would measure my life with coffee spoons. At 7:40, my spouse would stir and mistake remorse for love. At 7:30, Quentin's jacket still warmed my shoulders like permission. Between those minutes, I chose a window. Over a door, truth over performance, a line over drift today. I changed my shirt and rinsed my face in water so cold it made my eyes sting. Aaron was a silhouette in the bathroom doorway, one hand braced against the frame like the building might tip. "You're really going without me," he said, not a question. "I am," I said, tying my tie with hands that had written to 100 donors through the night. "Because I need to fix something. Because that's my job." He squinted at the carpet, as if it had a better answer. "Did we lose everything?" "No," I said. "We might, if I keep pretending." He flinched, the way you do when a bruise forgets it's supposed to hurt and then remembers. "Was he here all night? Quentin?" I said his name because it was not the problem. "He helped me do my job." Aaron's lip curled. "Of course, you always need someone." "I need a partner," I said, and the word refused to wear. His shape. "I can't keep being your wall." I took a breath. "After breakfast, we need to talk. About a leave. About help." He looked at me like I'd translated a language he didn't want to hear. "Are you leaving me?" "I'm drawing a line," I said. "You can step over to this side with me or you can keep tumbling, but I'm not tumbling with you anymore." He laughed without the humor. "And what about your friend with the hero jaw? Is he on your side of the line?" The question was sharp enough to slice something I'd been saving. "He stood beside me while I stood up," I said. "That's all." In the elevator down, the lobby flowers were still pretending to be mourning. Marla texted, "Corner table. Strong coffee. Stronger questions." I found her tucked into a banquette like a general behind a velvet barricade, hair perfect, eyes kind in a way that made kindness look non-negotiable. "Nolan," she said, standing to squeeze both my hands. Her rings were modest, her grip was not. "You look like you've been awake since before the internet." "I have," I said. "But we're steady, banners up, reversals are processing." "I saw," she said, sliding a small smile across the table like a token. "Clean, calm, human." She gestured to the server. "Coffee for him, black and merciful." We talked numbers first, because money prefers to be acknowledged before it misbehaves. Lila's name surfaced. Marla nodded like she'd been expecting competence. "What I need to know," she said, voice lowering, "is whether the story in the room matches the story online." "Which room?" "The gala, where Aaron had toasted the donors with an empty glass. Our hotel, where he slept the way a storm sleeps. The Sky Bridge, where I had practiced being awake next to someone who made it easier." "It will," I said, "because I'm going to make it match. We're putting guardrails in, second signatories, sober events, a public policy, and Aaron is stepping back." Marla did not blink. "By choice?" "By mine," I said. "But I'll offer him the dignity of making it look like his." Her mouth softened. "That dignity is expensive," she said. "I'm prepared to cover it. 3 months of operating, a cushion for chargebacks, a PR specialist with an allergy to euphemism. In exchange, I want a seat at the governance table, quarterly audits, and, this is personal, a plan for Aaron that isn't you." The word personal did something tender to my sternum. "You're sure about us?" I asked. "After last night?" "I'm sure about you," she said. "I've watched you carry a building with your teeth. I'm tired of watching you bleed. The cause deserves better than martyrdom, and so do you." The server arrived with coffee, and something that might have been toast if you squinted. Marla took a careful sip. "One more thing," she said. "If you need somewhere to land while you unfurl this new plan, my guest house is quiet and comes with a very nosy cat." I laughed, the kind that lifts some of the furniture in your chest. "Thank you," I said. "I have a friend who restores old houses. He reminded me last night where Light wants to go." "Good," she said, tipping her cup. "Follow it." She signed the pledge amendment with an ink pen that made a luxurious whisper. Send me the board changes by Friday. And Nolan, don't mistake patience for permission. Move. We shook hands, and the deal felt less like a transaction than a truce with myself. When I stepped into the lobby, the city had shrugged fully into day. Quentin was there, not hovering, just existing with intention by a column, as if the column had been looking for a reason to stand straighter. How'd it go? He asked. We still have a roof, I said. I have to change the shape. He held out a short, flat pencil, the kind carpenters tuck over an ear. For your line, he said. The red paint was chipped at the edges. It had known pockets and plans. I turned it in my fingers. You make it very hard not to believe in metaphors. Occupational hazard, he said. I can disappear now if that makes it easier. Or I can sit in the sky bridge and learn the names of the pigeons while you do what you need. Stay, I said. Not in the room, in the building. He nodded, like we'd agreed on coordinates. I'll be in that chapel of computers, bribing the printer into a second life. Back upstairs, Aaron had found a clean t-shirt and the part of himself that could do sorrow. He sat on the bed with his hands clasped like he'd been caught in prayer. Did she pull? He asked. No, I said, sitting in the chair opposite, the space between us finally honest. She doubled. Down, with conditions. I told her you're taking a leave. He closed his eyes. You're serious. I'm so serious I'm shaking, I said. I love you. But I don't love who we are when the bottle is in the room. We can't be that anymore. I can't. He waited, like he was seeing if I'd rescue him from the words. When I didn't, he let out a breath that had years in it. I hate that you're right, he said. I hate that I knew before you said it. We can find you help, I said. We can decide where you land. Your sister, a program, a friend. I just can't be the place you fall. He stared at my face like it was the home he was packing. Is there someone else? He asked finally. Quiet, not cruel. There's someone who stood with me while I remembered myself, I said. I haven't crossed that line, but I want to. After we draw this one. He nodded once, the kind of nod that concedes a game and still respects the opponent. I'll call my brother, he said. He'll drive me out today. His mouth trembled. I'm sorry, Noel. I know, I said. We sat in the soft wreckage of 10,000 meals and 1,000 late-night movies, and the dream we had loved into awkward shapes. There was grief there and also relief, like a door that had been stuck finally sliding along its track. When Aaron left with a duffel and a promise, I didn't believe in the promise. But I believed in the leaving. I texted Quentin. Skybridge? He responded with the elevator emoji and a lime. The glass corridor held the morning like a hand holds a bird. You could watch it breathe. Quentin was at the far end, eyes on the city, as if he'd been practicing looking outward so he wouldn't rush me. I joined him, the pencil in my pocket a small, brave weight. How's your line? He asked. Shaky, I said. True. He nodded. Most good lines are. I turned to him fully. I don't have anything tidy, I said. Only this. I want to keep looking where it's bright, and last night you were light. I don't know what the next hour looks like, let alone the next year, but I don't want to pretend I didn't feel it. His smile was the kind you trust because it doesn't try to sell you anything. I fix old houses, he said softly. Everything I love takes time. I'm not here for a shortcut. I'm here because you were brave while you were tired, and because you didn't ask me to be a door. You asked me to be a window. I stepped closer, enough to feel the warmth of him, the quiet. May I? I asked, because consent is an art, and I wanted to practice. You may, he said, and his breath lifted the space between us. We kissed the way you press a seal to wax, gentle, certain, an agreement we'd write as we went. No fireworks, just the click of something made to fit finally finding its place. When we parted, the city did not applaud. It simply kept offering itself. We stood with our foreheads almost touching, the world big and manageable at once. Dinner, he said. Somewhere, with limes and a table by a window. Dinner, I said. And in the afternoon, I call the board. And in the morning, I start again. He took my hand because sometimes the brave thing is simple. You started last night, he said. He did this with me all night while my spouse was drunk. He stayed. He steadied. He saw. And in the morning, I drew a line, opened a window, and watched the light climb in.